Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining. All right. So today is episode 2 of From the Lens of the Funder. I'm going to dive into more about grants and grant writing and even the process of how grants are approved. For those of you that are new to me, my name is Jennifer. I am a nonprofit expert. I am the nonprofit expert, 40 years of experience working within nonprofit organizations. I am a grant writer. I am a fundraiser. I am a nonprofit strategist, helping organizations put together the systems, the strategies, their infrastructure, so that their organization has the capacity to sustain the work that they're doing. I started this series because I think that there's a lot of misinformation or a lot of incomplete information as it relates to understanding funding, understanding grant writing, understanding fundraising overall. And having been in this business for 40 years, I wanted to bring my expertise, not just as a grant writer, but also as a grant reviewer. So I want you to understand what happens when donors and funders, supporters, foundations, what do they go through? What is the intelligence of how they decide who gets the funds? Okay. And so that's what we're going to talk about today in episode 2. I want you to consider this. All right. You submitted the grant application and you explained the need, right? You described the program, you told the funder how many people you wanted to help. You might have even hired someone to write the proposal, and the funder still said no. Now you're left with some question that thousands of nonprofit leaders ask, right? People ask this question: why didn't we get the funding? You might have gotten the declination letter, and that letter, the denial letter or the declination letter, did not tell you, right? It didn't tell you why you didn't get the funding. It may have thank you for applying. It may have said the process was highly competitive. It may have encouraged you to even apply again, but it did not tell you what the funder saw when they evaluated your organization. I'm going to say that again. What that letter did not tell you was what the funder saw when they evaluated your organization. And if you don't understand what weakened the request, then you could submit the same problems again, just written differently, right? Again, I am Jennifer, and this is From the Lens of the Funder, where I help organizations and leaders understand what funders are really examining before they decide whether to invest. Let me begin with something that may be difficult to hear. You may not have gotten, you may not have a grant writing problem. Okay. You may not have a grant writing problem. You may have an organizational capacity problem that becomes visible through the grant application. I'm going to say that again. And again, this may be difficult to hear. All right. You may not have a grant writing problem. You may have an organizational capacity problem that becomes visible through the grant application. And those are not the same thing. A grant writer can improve the language. A grant writer can organize the information. A grant writer can make sure the application follows the instructions. But even the strongest grant writer cannot write into existence an accountable board, documented financials, measurable outcomes, a credible program model, community partnerships, a diversified revenue strategy, evidence of previous performance, an organization that is not entirely dependent on the founder. Good writing can communicate organizational capacity. It cannot manufacture capacity that does not exist. Did you hear what I said? That is why some nonprofit organizations continue receiving those denials even after changing grant writers or attending grant writing workshops or downloading templates or letting AI write the application for you or submitting more applications. You're trying to solve an organization problem with better sentences. I'm going to say that again. You're trying to solve organizational problems with better sentences. I get this question all the time. Jen, I had a grant writer. They wrote the grant, but we didn't get the funds. Jen, what is your success rate in getting grants? And I'm going to say to you that the intelligence behind the funder's decision is not about who wrote it. It's about the organization. Does the organization have a problem? The grant writing may be great, but what about the organization's capacity? That's what they're looking at. Most nonprofit leaders look at the application and you see questions, right? You see questions. You see describe your organization. You see explain the community need. You see tell us about your program. Provide your goals and objectives. Explain how you will evaluate the program. You see submit the budget. Describe your sustainability plan. And so you see those questions and you think, if I answer all of these questions correctly, we should receive the grant, right? But that's not necessarily how the grant funder is reading the application. The funder is not simply collecting information. The funder is conducting an examination. Every question is helping the funder evaluate your organization's credibility, capacity, risk, and ability to produce results. Put results in the chat. Put results in the chat. When the funders ask about your organization's history, they're not only asking when you started, they are examining whether you have the experience and the stability to carry out what you are proposing. So when the funder asks about the need, they're not asking whether people are struggling. They are looking for evidence that you understand the specific population, the specific problem, and the conditions contributing to that problem. So when the funder asks about your program, they're not only asking about the activities that you want to provide. They are evaluating whether those activities can realistically produce the results you are promising. When the funder asks about your board, they're not only requesting a list of names, they are examining governance, accountability, expertise, oversight, whether the organization can function beyond the founder, beyond you. When the funder asks about your budget, they're not only checking the math, they are examining your financial judgment. They want to know, is this budget realistic? Does it match the program narrative? Does the organization have proper financial controls? Is the request proportionate to the organization's experience? They want to know, can the organization manage the amount being requested? Not just that you can spend it. They want to know, is the organization depending on this one grant to survive? Now, when the funder asks about sustainability, they're not looking for hopeful statements that say, we will apply for additional grants and we will seek donations. That's not a sustainability strategy. The funder is examining whether your leadership understands how the program will continue after their funding ends. Listen, every question has a question behind the question. And that's why funding intelligence is the ability to understand both. Funding intelligence is able to understand both the question and the question behind the question. Most grant denials and most funder denials, they don't provide a detailed explanation of the funding decision. Okay? They just don't have the capacity to do that. And so you may receive a short message saying, the process is competitive. The funder received more requests than it could support. You may get back something that says your application was not selected at this time. It may say you are welcome to apply during a future cycle. That language tells you the result. It does not necessarily tell you the reason. All right? And perhaps the application was well written, but the organization had not demonstrated measurable results. Maybe the program was needed, but the budget wasn't credible. Maybe the organization was eligible to apply, but it was not competitive. Perhaps the funder believed the program was valuable, but had concerns about leadership, board oversight, financial management, or sustainability. Maybe the organization described activities, but never demonstrated what would change for the people being served. Or maybe the organization was simply not strongly aligned with that particular funder. Listen, without the analysis, you're forced to guess. You don't know why, right? You're forced to guess. And guessing can become very expensive. Many of you may spend another 20 hours rewriting an application. You might even pay for or hire another grant writer. You may reduce the amount requested. You may submit to 10 more foundations. But this is the truth. If you have not identified the actual weakness, you may be sending the same unfundable conditions to another application or to another funder. Did you hear what I said? That if you have not identified the actual weakness, you may be sending the same unfundable conditions into every application. If you have ever applied for grants and have repeatedly been denied, I want you to consider this. The rejection may not mean that your mission is not important. It may mean that your application did not give the funder enough evidence to confidently invest in the organization carrying that mission. Did you hear what I said? The rejection may not mean anything regarding your mission, right? It may mean that your application did not give the funder enough evidence to confidently invest in the organization carrying the mission. And that's an important distinction, because I think that a lot of people look at that denial letter as rejection. Oh my gosh, they don't like my program. They don't like what we're doing. They're rejecting our mission. No, it may be that you did not share enough about the organization. The funder needs to believe that the need is real, as well as decide that your organization is ready to deliver that. Listen, they can believe that the need is real. They can even believe that your program is amazing, but still decide that your organization is not ready. They can care about the population and still have concerns about your budget. They can appreciate your passion and still question your ability to measure results. They can like the program and still determine that your organization presents too much risk. That is why applying for more grants is not always the answer. Now, I know. You all have been taught, you all have been wired, you all have been programmed, you all drank the Kool-Aid. Start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. Start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. And the grant writers are selling their grant writing services, right? That's what they're selling, is their grant writing services. It's not the writing. It's the analysis. It's the analysis. The analysis of what are they looking to fund? What are the competitors, or what's the competition? If you don't understand why your previous request was unsuccessful, if you don't have the analysis of why was this not accepted, why did ours not get accepted but others did, submitting more applications may only repeat the problem. I'm convinced that because of the language that is shared about grant writing. Now, listen, I've been writing grants for 40 years. I get it. And now more than ever, everybody's talking about grants. Get a grant. You can get a grant. Get a grant. I got a grant list. Sign up for this grant, this grant newsletter. Grant. Grants are great, okay? But not everybody's getting that grant, right? Jen, I've been writing grants, Jen, but we're not able to get a grant. Jen, we keep getting rejected. Well, what about the ones that are not getting rejected? Submitting more applications is only repeating the problem, right? So what does that mean? Rejection without analysis becomes repetition. You just keep doing the same thing and keep getting the same result. You just keep doing the same thing and getting the same result, right? And now for many of you, you have tried it and failed. Jen, we've been writing grants, Jen, but we haven't been successful, right? I'm telling you why. I don't think it's the writing. I think that you need to have your organization analyzed, because the organization is what they are evaluating. not just the words on the application, okay? Some of you have not applied for grants because you are afraid of doing it incorrectly, right? You keep researching grants. You are on every list. You're on Grants Watch, you're on Grant Station, you're on grants.gov. You are researching grants, right? You've attended grant training. You've downloaded every list that's available. You're receiving information from your city, from United Way, from foundations. You save opportunities on your computer, but never submit the application. And I'm not going to tell you to just apply. If your organization is not prepared, I'm going to say that again. If your organization is not prepared, submitting prematurely can waste time and create discouragement. Okay? And I think that there's not enough clarity around the difference between your program and your organization. Those are not the same things. And because of the gap in clarity that's being discussed about grants, a lot of organizations believe that their program is what's being evaluated only in the grant application, and that's not true. It's the organization's ability, capacity to live out the grant cycle and to continue to do this program well after the grant dollars have been spent. So if your organization is not prepared, not the program, your organization. And I don't want you wasting time, and I don't want to create discouragement. But fear should not be allowed to keep you guessing, to keep you stuck. The answer is not blind confidence. The answer is informed preparation. Put informed in the chat. The answer is informed preparation. You need to know what funders are likely to examine. You want to know what your organization can currently demonstrate. They're not looking at your hope and dream and idea. They're wanting to know, can your organization demonstrate and live out what you've proposed? You need to know, where are the gaps? What must be strengthened first? Which opportunities fit your present stage of development? I think that information is going to give you a responsible path forward. Now, listen, I've written more grants than I can even count. I've written for hundreds of millions of dollars in grants. All right. It's not the dollar amount and it's not the number of grants. It's all about the organization. It's all about the organization. All right. It's about the organization understanding, knowing what the grant funder is looking for. They're not just looking for your paperwork. They're not looking for your passion. They're not looking for your idea. They're not looking for what you need. All right. You need to understand what it is. You need that information so that your time is being used wisely. All right. So there's those of you that have tried and failed, right? Tried and didn't get the results. Then there are those of you that say, Jen, I'm scared to try. I'm scared to write because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to start, right? Then there are others of you that are afraid that a denial from the grant funder will prove that your vision is not valuable. It will not. Others of you are afraid that a denial will prove your vision is not valuable. It will not. A funding decision is not a final judgment on your mission. It's a decision about alignment, about credibility, about evidence, right? A decision is about evidence. A decision is about capacity, about risk, and competitiveness, right? A no may mean not this program, or not this amount, or not this funder, or not with this evidence, or not with this budget, or not at this stage of organizational development, or simply not yet. But you cannot know what to improve if you refuse to examine what the application reveals. Listen, don't y'all personalize what should be analyzed. I'm going to say that again. Do not personalize what should be analyzed. The internet can tell you what sections belong in the grant proposal, right? The internet can tell you what sections belong in the grant proposal. A course, if you've taken a grant writing course, a course can explain how to write a statement of need. You may even have a template. A template can show you how to format your objectives. AI can help improve your wording, right? But none of those resources automatically understand your organization. I'm going to say that again. None of those resources understand your organization. They don't know whether your board is actually governing. They don't know whether your program design is realistic. They don't know whether your outcomes can be measured. They don't know whether your budget exposes operational weaknesses. They don't know whether your funding strategy depends on grants that are not yet positioned to compete for. They don't know whether your funding strategy depends on grants that you are not yet positioned to compete for. And lastly, they do not bring decades of pattern recognition from grant writing, from fundraising, from program development, from organizational operations, from nonprofit executive leadership. Did you hear what I said? That's what my expertise brings. I'm able to recognize patterns. Those templates, that website, that course, it does not bring decades of pattern recognition. I have written more grants than I can count. I have raised hundreds of millions of dollars from individuals, from sponsors, from all the streams of revenue. Information is widely available. Interpretation is the missing intelligence. You hear what I said? Interpretation is the missing intelligence. The real question is not, can you complete the application? The real question is, what will your answers cause the funder to believe about your organization? Listen, funding intelligence examines the entire funding request through the lens of the funder. Did you hear what I said? Funding intelligence examines the entire funding request through the funder's lens. It helps identify whether the opportunity was truly aligned, whether the organization was merely eligible or genuinely competitive. Funding intelligence says where the proposal lost clarity and credibility. It helps identify whether the need was supported by credible evidence, whether the program model logically connected activities to outcomes. Many of you are approaching the grant writing process from a place of activities. Jen, we want to feed the homeless. Jen, we want to help single moms. Jen, we want to do a transitional house. Jen, we want to do whatever activities. But do those activities logically connect to outcomes? Whether the budget supported or contradicted the narrative. That's the lens of the funder. Whether the board and leadership structure communicated accountability. Whether the organization demonstrated its ability to manage the award. It's not about the money. They're going to give the money. It's not about the money. It's not even about what you want to do, because other organizations are doing programs too. It's whether the sustainability response was a real strategy or inspiration. It helps you to identify what must be strengthened before the organization reapplies. I want to be clear. Unless a funder, a foundation, a donor, a major donor, unless they provide reviewer comments or scoring notes, no outside professional can truthfully claim to know every private reason behind the funder's decision. But an experienced analyst, remember, I'm a grant writer, I'm also a grant reviewer. So the experience of reviewing thousands of applications for organizations nationally and internationally. As an experienced analyst, I can identify the specific weaknesses, the risks, the omissions, and the competitive issues that likely affected the decision. And this is far more useful than simply telling you, oh, apply again. Just apply again, right? This is why I teach capacity creates funding. Your paperwork gives the organization legal standing. Your passion gives you the motivation to serve and do the work. Your program gives you the vehicle for addressing the need. But capacity gives funders evidence that the organization can govern itself, manage money responsibly, deliver the program, measure the results, protect the people it serves, remain accountable, sustain the work, use the funder's investment effectively. your program may create interest. And your story, right? Your story may create an emotional connection. For those of you that say, Jen, I started my nonprofit organization because of what happened to me. And because of what happened to me, Jen, I want to help other people. So your story may create an emotional connection. But your organizational capacity reduces the risk of investment. And this is what's not being talked about. This is what you're not going to get from that grant list. This is what you're not going to get from that grant writing class. This is not what you're going to get from the internet or from YouTube University or over there in them groups. The funder is not only asking, is this program needed? The funder is also asking, can this organization be trusted to deliver what is promised? I'm going to say that again. That application is not only words on paper. It's not only asking, is this program needed? The funder is also looking at, can this organization be trusted to deliver what it is promising? That second question is where many organizations lose the funding. Not because your mission, not because of the program not being good, not because there's not a need for the program, not because the money is not there. No. It's, can they look at the organization? Does the organization have the capacity to deliver what it's promising? And that is the question where organizations lose funding. Listen, before you apply for another grant, I want you to ask yourself, do we know what the funder, the foundations, the major donors, the partners, the sponsors, do we know what they would find if they evaluated our organization today? Ask yourself that. Do you know what they would find if they evaluated your organization today? Ask yourself, can our organization demonstrate capacity? Or are we relying primarily on our passion? Ask yourself, do we have measurable outcomes or only a list of activities? Is our board governing or merely listed on paper? Ask yourself, does our budget communicate credibility? Can we explain how the work will continue after the grant? Are we actually competitive for the funding that we are pursuing? Ask yourself, do we understand where our organization creates risk for a potential funder? If you cannot answer those questions with evidence, if you cannot answer those questions with evidence, your next step should not automatically be another grant application. Your next step should be an honest diagnosis. Your next step should be an honest diagnosis. This is where and why I created the organizational capacity assessment. This assessment is designed to help identify what currently exists inside your organization where important gaps may be weakening your funding position and what must be strengthened before you pursue funding. All right. And again, this is not what you're going to hear from any class. This is not what you're going to get from AI. This is not what you're going to get from, these downloadable lists. I am an analyst. I have the intelligence. I have the insider intelligence as a grant writer, as a grant reviewer, as a professional fundraiser. After raising hundreds of millions of dollars for thousands of organizations nationally and internationally, I have the analysis of what organizations are funded, what goes into the decision-making process. This is not guessing. This is intelligence. As an analyst, I know which organizations are more competitive and which organizations are not. I want you to know where your organization lies in the area of competitiveness, because the donor, the funder, the foundation, the major donor, they have a decision to make. Both organizations have paperwork. Both organizations have programs. Both organizations have missions. Both organizations need the money. But do both organizations have the capacity to continue the work after the grant has been spent? That's the deciding factor. It's not your paperwork. It's not your program. It's not your passion. It's not your why. It's not even the money. It's not even what you're asking for. It's, does your organization have the capacity to continue the work after those grant dollars are gone? Listen, this is not another grant list. This is not a promise of instant funding. It is not an exercise designed to tell you what you want to hear. The assessment is designed to help you understand what a funder may see when they look beyond your mission and examine the organization responsible for carrying it out. You do not need to keep submitting applications without understanding why the previous ones failed. You do not need another template if the real weakness is your organizational structure. And you do not need to interpret every rejection as proof that your mission does not matter. No, you need intelligence. You need to understand the organization through the lens of the funder, because grant writing helps make the request. Funding intelligence helps determine whether the organization behind the request is ready to be funded. I'm going to invite you to take advantage of my organizational capacity assessment. It's complimentary. At least you'll know. You'll know where your organization stands through the lens of the funder. You'll have the intelligence. Before you make another ask, find out what your organization is already communicating. All right? I'm going to list in the description and in the comments how to get the link for the organizational capacity assessment. It's bit.ly/org assessment form, bit.ly/org assessment form. All right. I am Jennifer Yarbrough, and this has been From the Lens of the Funder. Remember, your passion may start the organization. Your program may address the need, but it's your capacity. Your capacity is what gives the funders the confidence to invest. Capacity creates funding. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you next time.